Hey there, good evening. It's Tuesday night. It's another Tuesday night watch chat topic discussion this evening. I am here with my friends Rick and Joey B. Rick, how are you? Thank you for coming on today. What is new with you, man?
I am doing great, Rob. Good to see both you and Joey. Good to be here. Should be a fun discussion tonight.
Yeah, and we'll get into the topic very, very soon. Rick, of course, it's customary. What do you have on wrist, man?
Well, it is Tuesday, so that means it might be Speedy Tuesday.
Very, very nice.
Uh, the Silver
Oh,
Snoop
oh
or
yeah.
Awesome.
Let me get a solo layout there. Yeah, that's a great watch.
fun thing.
Yeah, and I've heard you refer to that watch as a fun watch before. Is it up easily wearable? Can you just throw it on and just like go about your day or
Yeah.
yeah
Great power reserve, keeps great time. Love the aesthetic on the dial. I
yeah
think the one complaint that people have that have this watch is it's got a really, really stiff strap. I mean, it feels like it
yeah
should just be a really comfortable fabric strap, but it's super, super stiff. But it does break in a little bit.
yeah
And of course, you got that fun animation on the back,
of course
named every now and then.
yeah for sure for sure. Um, Joey, what's going on, man? Long time.
Rob, very good to see you. Rick,
Yeah.
great to be here with you too. Two of my favorite people in this hobby.
Ah, so
Um,
sweet.
yeah, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's nice to be on. Thanks for having me on, and glad to be part of the show.
Yeah. So what do you have on wrist today?
So I was wearing the Speedy earlier today for Tuesday, but I had a new Omega show up today.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I got the green dial Aquaterra 41
Excellent.
millimeter.
Congratulations, man. That's a beautiful
Thank you very
watch.
much.
Yeah. Aquaterra is such a great watch, man. Such a great watch.
Uh,
It is, like it's one of those things where you you hear people kind of call it a normal watch or it's kind of run of the mill or whatever, but I think it
Every day, you know.
yeah. I think it has a real lot going for it.
Hmm.
You know, I never really got into Omega, and when I got the Speedy, it really kind of threw me down the rabbit hole a little bit. I really
Yeah.
loved I love that 1861,
Mm.
1863 movement.
Hmm.
And it just made me appreciate wanting a coaxial movement that much more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, I've already got a diver. I've got my Pelagos.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I
and
was gonna
I
ask you.
wanted
I was
some.
I was gonna ask you. Are you gonna go with a Seamaster? But now you have the Pelagos, right?
I know
So
it's tough. It's
yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
I love the Pelagos so much, and I really don't want to get something that's going to take time away from it.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, I've been missing a really good green dial
Hmm.
since I let go of the Moser about 6 months ago. Um,
Yeah.
which is a good segue for what we'll be talking about later. But
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But
um,
and it just dawned on me, like both of you guys at one point had, correct me if I'm wrong, that Aquaterra World Timer, right? Didn't you both?
I
Didn't
don't know
Rick?
if
Didn't
Rick
you?
ever had the
No,
world time. I know
Rick, you
Rick was
didn't. Okay.
looking at it
Okay. Okay.
at one
Thought about
point.
it very seriously. I got real close, but
Ah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did both have, I think, the same Pioneer, though, didn't we?
Yep.
Did you have the green
Yep.
Pioneer? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, excellent. Excellent. And that is a green dial, right, Joey? So because it's a little hard with the visual there,
It is. Yeah.
but
It's
great looking watch. Congratulations again, man. That's awesome. Good for
Yep.
you. Very happy for you. I'm wearing my Cosmonaut. Um, love this thing. You know, it's it's over 20 years old.
Sweet
It's
piece.
neo vintage, right? The loom on it. The what's that? The tritium is no longer working. Right, the half light is done, but it looks cool. It looks. I still can't. I still have a hard time setting the time. I think I was telling some of the guys I was chatting to today, like the only time I could set the time, and I know for sure that I'm setting the time is like at 12 or at 6, right? Or no, 12 or at midnight or 12 o'clock at night. But then I realized, well, yeah, duh. I mean, I could do like a quarter after or a half hour. but it is a little tricky. It's not really for telling time for me. It's just aesthetically it makes me happy, and
Yeah,
you know. But that's all right.
classic navy.
I already have my phone to tell the time, right? Um, well, let's say hello to some of the guys in chat, and then we'll get into our topic discussion tonight. I think it's going to be a really, really good one, and I'm sure you guys on the chat will gain some nuggets, because I think it's going to be a lot of good information here. Let's say hello to Brent. How you doing, Brent? Marceau is here. Wilson, what is up? Always good to see you. Dib is here. The groupies are here. Yeah. Keith is here. Bill K. What's up, Bill? Hey, Rob from the Mountain Standard Time. Moon dust on my watch. Never, he says. Justin is strapped in. Caliber YQG is here. How are you, sir? There's my boy Chaz. What's going on? K, Canadian Watch Monkey. He's here as well. James Duffy is here. Awesome. Mr. Finney, good to see you. AZ Clayton, what's up? Hey, Stefan uh, is saying good evening, everyone from British Columbia. Excellent. Kevin S, what's up, Kevin S? How you doing? Mez9 is here. Bruno is here. Underachieving Watch Collector, all here. Paul, what's going on? Trying so hard not to post a mom joke after seeing the title of this vid. Okay. All right. Colin is here. Mr. Time Hill, what is going on? Good to see you. Mr. Cassioke, he is here as well. Guys, let me know if my volume is good compared to Rick and Joey. I think it is. Had a couple complaints from, the Watch Soup episode last Sunday, so I just want to make sure I get it right. Deech is here. What's going on? How you doing, Deech? Best everyday watch out there. Here it's better than a Nautilus and the Royal Oak. I think he's referring to your Aquaterra.
100% on point.
Yeah. Pound for pound AT is one of the best for sure. We get desensitized to Omega movements because they become standard. They didn't make them rare. Thank God, would have been a cheap move, right? For sure. That's the one thing about Omega that I appreciate. They make a lot of Omega watches, right? There's a ton of them out there, and they're all great. Hope to add one. I haven't had an Omega in my collection yet. I hope to add one of these days.
Wow.
Ken Spear is checking in from Pittsburgh. What's up? Okay. Here we go. Bobby's gonna bring. By the way, Bobby, man, I mean, like 160 million to Daniel Jones. Oof. That is rough. That is rough.
You know what I do like? I like having Jalen Hurts on a rookie contract for another year.
Yeah. Oh man. Hey, Wayban is here. How you doing? Paul says I still use my watch to tell the time like 100 times a day. Wear one to go to bed. Pelagos 39. Loom goes all night. All right, man. I hear you. Hey, BJ, what's going on? How you doing? Rob, thank you for the confirmation. Chaz is saying eat a brownie so we can get a good sound check. No, I won't. I won't. Not tonight. Mr. Cassie saying I also love Omega's arabesque decoration. It's machine made, but it's excellently done and done distinctive. Like I love Almond's that Globemaster annual calendar. That's a great
Beautiful.
looking watch too. Yeah, Omega. Yeah, I mean, still surprising that I haven't added one. I always figured they're always going to be there. Like Speedmasters, like they're always going to be there, and I've never picked one up. But one of these days. Oh, Kevin S. Caramel candy, caramel corn tonight? No. Just maybe a little bit of tea. That's all. Okay.
Hey, speaking of which, where's the intern? I guess you got the audio working on your own there,
none
Bobby?
of the intern takes off on Tuesday nights.
Oh,
yeah.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah.
Paid time off.
How's that guy keep his job?
Yeah, hey, listen, at the Bobby Legs live streams, we believe in work balance and life balance. You know what I mean? So he he really takes advantage of that. He takes all his PTO days every year, all the sick days. He uses them. It's his right. It's his right. Um, anyway, let's move on to tonight's topic, and we're going to discuss where do experienced collectors like Rick and Joey B sell their watches, and firstly, where or how they determine that a watch needs to go, and what kind of watch goes to which platform. And Rick, I want to tee it up with you. We've been talking about doing the stream for a while, and thanks again for joining me. Finally, been able to put it together. Um, what, how do you determine that a watch, first of all, that you need to part ways with it?
That's probably the toughest part in selling is not where to sell or how to sell it or how much, but that emotional decision to actually part with a watch. And I'm not very good at it. I get emotionally connected to a lot of my
Yeah.
pieces, but I think either it doesn't get enough wrist time, you find that you're just not wearing it. It's not in the rotation. A couple of years ago, I retired and I decided to part with a few of my dress watches as I was, going to be more casual and more concentrated on sport watches. Sometimes a watch may, another reason a watch may just appreciate in value where it might be worth more to somebody else in the watch community than it is to you. Those are just some of the reasons that I might decide to sell a watch.
Yeah, yeah. Joey, are you pretty much in line with that thinking too,
Yeah,
or?
pretty much. I think a lot of it comes into a lot of what comes into play is especially recently, it's like how long I've been doing this, right? And at the very beginning, it was easy because it was just like you just want to explore everything, and you find yourself, you're rapidly turning things over, and as Rick said, you kind of get to a point where you're just like, all right, these are the pieces that I really honed in on that I really like, and then you start having to kind of pick and choose. Is this one something that I really want to get rid of? And it starts to get harder, and I think that for me, it's a combination of a lot of the times, like I'll fall in love with a piece right off the bat for something, and then after a while, that thing, whatever it is that I loved about it, it starts to eat away at me as something that I don't like at all about it. And that's and usually it's like Rick said, lack of wrist time, I think, is the first thing that can really kind of throw you off.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes down to, shoot, I didn't make bonus last month, and maybe I should try and, while I'm tightening the strings a little bit, maybe I better let go of something,
Well, and then I think, Joey, sometimes, with the wait times on new watches these days, sometimes you're placing an order for a watch that might get delivered 3 months or 6 months or a year down the road. So sometimes it's anticipatory and you're making room for an incoming that might be coming, towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Quick question by Steve before we move along. Do any panel members buy a watch knowing they'll sell it after a year? And I got to be honest with you, since running this channel, I buy watches and that I know that I'm going to part with because I'm either going to do a review on them or sell, or some watches that I just not really sure 100% that I'm going to like or not. Last couple of years I don't really get a chance to go out to ADs and boutiques and try on a lot of watches. So a lot of it is online. A lot of it is like with the hope that it's going to work out, and sometimes it doesn't. Do you guys buy a watch knowing full well that after a little while you're going to get rid of, or do you just buy a watch because you like it and then something happens?
I'm just more of a long-term buy and hold, and then ultimately fall out of love with something, or
Gotcha.
collection gets too big and you got to trim it down.
Yeah, I think I like what Rick's saying. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second.
It's okay. No worries.
But it's what was What was Steve's original question again?
Do you buy a watch knowing that in a year from now that you're going to part ways with it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I always have the best intentions
Yeah.
whenever I buy, and then I just
Yep.
for whatever reason I decide to move on. But
Yeah.
every single time that I have bought something knowing that I was going to get rid of it soon, it never worked out.
Yeah.
It always ended up taking a bath or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now, Rick, you made the determination that a specific watch has to go. What is your process in determining the best course of action when you're or best platform to sell that watch?
Well, I think you go through, I think a lot of collectors, at least I go through kind of a thought process. Am I trying to maximize price or am I trying to do something quickly?
Hmm.
So speed, price, and there's a little bit of a trade-off there. How much risk am I willing to take around, payment fraud, fraudulent transactions, chargebacks on some of these platforms? Do I have any concerns, like we just talked about, do I have any concerns in protecting a relationship with a authorized dealer or a boutique
Hmm.
or a brand that I'm concerned with? How public do I want to be
Hmm.
about the sale? Am I in the watch at a good price?
Hmm.
So that can play into it. If I'm
Hmm.
into it at a good price, I've got a lot more room, and I may opt to be a little bit more expedient in trying to get rid of it. I mean, in some of these platforms that we're going to talk about, it can be a long, long process. And then, do I need to be anonymous in selling, or can I be public in what I'm posting? And most of the stuff I do is public if I decide to go that route. And then, are there any tax ramifications? 1099s on some of the
Hmm.
platforms, or sales tax ramifications on some of the platforms. So it's those types of things that I look at.
Okay, so and thank you. You also shared with me some of your notes prior to this. So let's go through that list of considerations, right? And then where you would what platform is of your choice when considering that. I have it listed. There's no particular order here. How much of a hurry are you? So when you make that determination and maybe you see something else, or you need to raise capital for something that's non-watch related or whatnot, and speed of sale is important to you. Where do you go for that?
Yeah, I think for me, some of the quickest methods might be some of the social media platforms. There's certain Facebook groups that
Mm,
are fairly prolific, and if it's a pretty common watch at a medium, modest, moderate price point, it's probably pretty movable. There's a reasonably competitive auction platform called Loupe This,
mm,
www.loopethis.com. And that's a pretty quick process, and it's fairly efficient, compared to consignment, for instance.
hmm.
Consignment take 3 months, 6 months,
Yeah,
9 months, a year on
yeah.
consignment.
Yeah, and so let's talk about a little bit about Loupe This. Loupe This seems to be a little bit more friendly to both the buyer and the seller, it seems, compared to your typical auction houses, and we'll talk about that shortly. But with Loupe This, what is the split usually for the buyer and the seller?
Yeah. So as a seller, there's a flat $500 fee.
Mm,
That's all from a
mm-hmm,
seller's point, which is very, very competitive. So, on a $10,000 watch,
hmm.
after the net sale price, your seller fees are only $500. On the buyer side, they charge a 10% buyer premium. That would compare to a lot higher buyer premium at the
Hmm.
big Sotheby's, Christie's, and places like that. But auctions aren't for everybody, Rob.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Well,
it's
it's nerve-wracking, right?
there's
Could
no
be.
minimum. You can't set a
Yeah,
minimum. So you're
yeah.
putting a watch out there. You got to be comfortable. You got to be comfortable. And generally, in my mind, I kind of put a range on. I try to box the range on,
Hmm.
A to B on what I think the sale price is going to be. But it's a pretty good platform. It's run by Eric Koo and Justin Grunberg and a couple of other well-known watch professionals. They know what they're doing. You're not going to take any payment risk or any payment
Mm.
fraud. Send them the watch. They photograph it. They put it up there. They handle all the transaction. And you get paid within a couple of weeks of the auction closing.
Yeah. Yeah, ever since I think I first heard of Lupus from you,
Yeah, probably.
maybe about 6 months ago or however long it was, and I'm always on Loupe This because I find the auction, watching the auction kind of go live and the bidding going on, very very interesting. And you see a lot of pieces that are very collectible in a sense that you maybe your typical watch enthusiast may or may not know some of these particular models from brands. And there's also like some interesting interesting things that happen on that site. So like if you go and you try to sell, and we noticed this, right, Joey, and we've seen friends of ours pick up pieces at almost like seemingly a steal, and these are like your typical run-of-the-mill pieces that you may see that are more common, right? It's the more specific, the more rare pieces that seem to go really high in price, right? I mean, have you guys seen that as well,
And
or am I
in
just?
my opinion, Loupe This looks like the best platform for a limited, a rare, a really strong vintage piece.
Mhm.
Um, a kind of like a independent watchmakers
Yep.
that people really in the know
Yeah.
really know about, and that really seems like the one of probably the best platform out there, and it's probably the worst platform out there for if you just want to sell your Omega Aquaterra. that's
Right.
that's
Right.
definitely not a place to do it.
Right.
But I mean, like it looks like a great platform for selling.
Yeah.
And I actually considered selling on this at one point.
Yeah.
The the Moser Pioneer, as I mentioned earlier, it was one of the few that actually had the stainless steel bracelet. And I had a couple different strap options with it as well. But, like a real collector out there would be like, whoa, a Pioneer on a stainless steel bracelet. I've never seen that before. So that's why that became an intriguing option for me. I ended up going in a different direction, but it's definitely an intriguing platform.
I
Yeah.
think total transparency, Rob. I think I've sold 10 pieces on Loupe This, and
Mhm.
some of them have sold right kind of where I expected from a price standpoint. Two went substantially over, where
Mm.
people got into some bidding wars at the final,
Yeah.
and they went way, way, way over. And then I got hammered on a couple of pieces that
Yeah.
went under, one by, one that went for $1,000 or $2,000 lighter, and one that, went for a lot less than it should have, where I actually feel I would have rather owned the watch at that price point than sold it. But that's why it's not for the faint of heart, right?
Sure. Sure. And can you speculate why that small? It sounds like maybe if you said 10 watches and two of them, like 20% of your watches didn't go for what you thought it would be. Can you speculate why, or it just was luck of the draw kind of?
Might just be the timing,
Mhm.
that particular timing of that
Yeah.
auction, the day of the week, the month,
Sure.
the calendar, the calendar quarter. I don't really, it's not like it was an obscure watch. I mean,
Mm.
one of them was a blue dial Octo Finissimo,
Mm.
pretty narrow range on what it should sell for. And
Right. Right.
it went pretty light. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and Deech is here a comment, and this is what I had in mind when I was saying before. Like some watches, you'd be surprised what you can get for the more common watches. Deech got a killer deal on an IWC Pilot 43, and then I'm glad he mentioned it 'cause I didn't want to point him out without him, mention it. But you can get great deals on Loupe This if you're a buyer. It seems like as a seller, you can also have some great success there as well. Um, okay, let me get back to your notes. Okay, so if you're trying, Rick, now if you're trying to maximize your price, and look, we're all trying to maximize our price at one point. This might be a little bit tougher to narrow down, or you may be able to narrow down. But what are you looking at when you're maximizing price? Like, what is your go-to?
I think a couple of different platforms. I've had success on Chrono 24. You
Hmm.
control pricing. It's not the wild, wild west. I'm pretty comfortable with their escrow process, protecting both buyers and sellers. They've got a global audience. I mean, honestly, where do we all go look when we're investigating a watch? You kind of check pricing on
Yeah.
Chrono 24.
Hmm.
So it's a pretty good platform. It's not real fast, but I think you can set the price and you can control it, and you've got a worldwide worldwide audience. And then, I've consigned watches with, I guess 3 or 4 different places now. I use an AD that specializes in a lot of independent watches, Seidel in Chicago, where I buy a lot of watches as well. And then, our friend AB from Ticking Way, he does a lot of consignment, very, very competitive. And then recently I've consigned a few pieces. I'm in Naples, Florida for the winter, and I've consigned a few pieces with Exquisite, where I've got a relationship as well. And jury's still out. I just consigned those in the last couple of weeks. But I think those are the way you're not paying exorbitant fees. They've got broad audiences, and I think it's a good way to kind of control the sale process.
Yeah, Joey, where's your go-to to do the best you can? I mean, like, I know you're trying to get as much as you can, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on what price point you're working with, right? So it's like young in the hobby, I loved using eBay to sell, especially inexpensive pieces, a spinnaker that I picked up online or whatever, a deep blue, a lot of these lesser brands are just, you have to, you're just trying to get out of them. eBay is a great place because most of the people that are on eBay, they've seen these pieces before. They're online, they're searching around for watches, and they're getting lots of ads for spinnakers and deep blues and those types of things. And I've actually done quite well, selling those there, not making a profit, but maybe only losing 10% on the transaction. And, I think a lot of the time looking at the piece that you have and the place to sell it it goes hand in hand too, like we were saying with Loupe This, something that's more rare, something like a Kudoki or our friends sold a Ketelars there, and they did really well in that platform. While when it comes to, but if you're talking like mid to high range, there's some online retailers that I really like using for especially for a quick transaction. European Watch, I had really, really good experiences with. Very strong offers and paid within 72 hours. Crown and Caliber, they take a little bit longer, but so those. It all depends on kind of what price point you're at, and
for sure.
The problem with eBay, and I'm sure we'll get into eBay a little bit, but the tax implications. I don't know how deep you want to get into that, but that's a new thing that's gonna be a huge detriment to a lot of people.
Crown and Caliber and European are both great platforms. You got people like Delray Watch, Watchbox, Watchfinder, David SW. I've sold some watches. And we didn't touch on it, but I mean, my first avenue, the least painful, is to do a trade. Either a 1-for-1 trade. I've done some 2-for-1, some 3-for-1. I did a deal with European a few years ago, Joey. I traded 5 watches for 1, and it was seamless. I mean, not a lot of back and forth. I mean, it was just a very seamless transaction. They're very, very good people to work with.
I think they gave me strong offers right up front. I finagled a little bit, came back a little bit higher. Great. Next thing I know, I've got a shipping label for overnight, shipped it out. They literally, the minute that they opened it, they said, "We got your watch, sending the check." Didn't, they couldn't have even taken time to inspect it. But got it right out.
Jim T asking, does Loupe This authenticate for the buyer? Rick, can you answer that for us? Yeah, I would imagine so, right?
Yeah, you're not going to get an authentication report like eBay does. But first of all, they don't accept every watch, so you just can't consign whatever. I mean, there's a process you go through, and they're selective on what they take and the condition of the watch and what it is and the expected price point. Otherwise, they'd be inundated. So there's really not a whole lot of risk. And given the people that are involved in backing this, there's some of the most well-known people that been in the watch business for 20, 30 years. So a lot of comfort from a buyer standpoint on Loupe This.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
and
their condition reports can be like a lot of platforms that we've talked about. I think their condition reports can be a little generous at times, and I know we've had a few members of our community that have purchased from them, and the watches are a little rougher than what the condition report might be. But I
mhm,
think I go into it assuming it's not going to be as great a condition as what any condition report says.
right, right, of course, it's a good way to manage your expectations for sure, and you know, you mentioned a couple places. You mentioned AB. I personally can speak that I've had success consigning with AB and Ticking Way, and he has a great channel as well, and he's a very talented photographer and videographer. He can make anything look really, really good, and I think that's going to be helpful. And I think he's going to probably do more of that for his business. So you know, good spot to sell. I think. Anyway, from my personal experience, um,
Yep.
let's let's move on with your list here, and you know, we may have already, you know, kind of like touched on some of the stuff, but so when you have concerns with your maintaining relationships with an AD and boutique, I imagine, you know, so a place like Loupe This can be very, very good. But when you have like very specific watches, very limited pieces, I know you have your share of limited pieces. People know, kind of can guess probably that, you know, maybe Rick is selling something, right? I mean, do you encounter that ever?
Yeah, and I mean, selling a watch to a friend through groups, we've all got different WhatsApp groups and
Mm,
Discord groups and YouTube groups and Facebook groups. And selling particularly a rare piece amongst a small community group, um, that's an effective way to do it. The more rare the piece, the more well known who the original owner might be, and you're not going to have anonymity. So I think utilizing a platform like social media or your friends groups is an effective means to sell a piece.
yeah. Dib did a 5 watch trade of Speedmasters.
Bobby.
Oh, Bobby did. I'm sorry, Bobby did. I did 5 watch Speedmasters in European Watch Company for a 5711. Good old times,
That's
pre-COVID
a
craziness.
that's a Hall of Fame move right
That
there.
that is a Hall of Fame. Um, Joey, any concerns maintaining relationships with ADs or boutiques? Have you ever encountered that scenario?
Not really.
Yeah.
Like my main local AD, she actually is. I've never. Well, let me rephrase this. I've never with her gone after like hype pieces. So
Hmm.
she's always been giving me very honest, fair pricing, um, and she's like the very first time I ever bought from her, she's like, make sure you keep the box because you might want to move it on down the road. And I'm just like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was a little bit concerned with my Rolex AD, but they just lost their AD partnership, so no concerns there anymore.
Wow.
Um, so it's I've never had any conflicts of interest as
I
far
think
as
I think the best advice is really just don't try to sell too quickly. I mean, I think if you
Mm,
wait a year or 18 months, I personally try to wait 18 to 24 months if I've got like a steel sports Rolex or, a hard to get, highly allocated Patek or something. Just don't try to flip it in the first 18 months. And I think that, the AD is not going to have too big of a concern. If you're doing it repeatedly over and over and over, that's probably a relationship concern that you're going to have, no matter how you sell or where you sell it.
yeah. Jim T, thanking you on the loop disinformation. Thanks, Jim, for watching. So then, Rick, then at what point do you engage a more formal auction company like a Christie's or a Sotheby's if you ever sold through them? Like, you know, what helps get you there with that decision?
Yeah, so I would use I've used Phillips and I've used
Mm,
Christie's in the past, um, and I've had decent success and good execution, but mostly on pretty rare pieces.
okay.
I've got some higher end, some pretty rare stuff, and if I decided to part with that at some point in time, I think that would be a Christie's or Phillips or Sotheby's would be a very, very good platform
Is
to sell.
is it because of their visibility or their prowess in the community as auction communities of having these very specific pieces, or
I just
just
think when it comes to six-figure type watches, if
yeah,
you look at a $70,000 or $150,000 watch or
yeah,
whatever it would be, that's their specialty. That's
okay,
their. I mean, I wouldn't ever sell uh, $10,000 watch through them. I don't think, but
right,
a rare piece that's expensive. Now, but they got buyer's premiums that are
hmm
way up there. 24, 25, 26,
hmm
27%.
yeah,
Just charge the seller, 6, 7, 8, 9% as
yeah,
well. And then there's a lot of other associated fees and things that
sure,
you got to be concerned with. And then they're pretty slow to pay. I
yeah,
mean, I would tell you that I think the big auction houses, you better plan on pretty close to a year from the time that you ship
wow,
your watch.
okay,
Yeah.
Wow.
um, to get paid then, you're wow, okay,
For the whole process.
yeah, for the
Yeah. I mean,
process,
they only do kind of May and December
right,
auctions. And then, the payment process can take,
mm,
60, 90 days after the close of the auction. So,
wow,
like I had some pieces in the Phillips December auction, 2 pieces, and, a vintage Roger Dubuis, and
hmm
then another piece. And, I shipped them to them, I'm going to think in July or August of last year. The auction was in December, and, I got paid in February. So
wow.
maybe not quite a year, but, 8 months for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I assume they had to put they take photos of it and they put it in a catalog and then that gets distributed. Okay, gotcha. Kevin S is saying, when I want to stay anonymous selling watches, I just put on a fake mustache, a la Bobby Valentine. Nobody is the wiser. Great, great little. Remember that? Remember
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah.
Hilarious.
He was a piece of work, that
Got
Bobby
kicked out
Valentine.
of the game, and
Yeah.
he's back to
Uh,
the dugout wearing the.
yeah, yeah. When was that? Um, so then I think at this point, in this day and age, especially with the tax man, right? Cracking hard on some of these sales and a lot of different platforms. Are you guys concerned about the future of your ability to sell some of these pieces because of the tax implications? Um, or are you going to go try to be more, party to one party to another party? I mean, how do you navigate that, Rick, especially with some of the pieces that you have?
Yeah, well, two types of taxes. I think the one that you got to be concerned with was sort of a gain on sale. You bought a
Hmm.
watch for 3,000 and now it's worth 30.
Yeah.
Uh, on some of the platforms, that's going to be a reportable income, and they're cracking down on all kinds of different things. Ticket platforms. If you've got
Hmm.
tickets to the Eagles or
Yeah.
Commanders or Cowboys
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
it might be, and you sell tickets, and you make a gain on that ticket, you're going to get taxed on the gain on that ticket. So it's going to happen. And then there's sales tax concerns.
Hmm.
Both buying and selling. I think as a private seller, you don't have to worry as
No.
much the sales tax concerns. But
Yeah.
and we haven't talked about. I don't know if you want to jump into it at some point, but we haven't talked about some of the social media platforms. Like I'll post watches sometimes, occasionally on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I have not had much success on Instagram.
Hmm.
Even I've got pretty good followership on my watch
Hmm.
account.
Oh yeah.
Haven't really had much hit. I'm not real disappointed by that because it just opens it up to a world of you don't know everybody that's following you. You don't know all of your
Yeah.
15,000 followers.
Yeah.
YouTube, and I think that there's more risk involved in that. And then there's a couple of one in particular Moda Facebook group that's I think very well policed, very well protected, vibrant marketplace for buyers and sellers.
Hmm.
And I've had success both as a buyer and seller. I
Yeah.
think, Joe, you've had a lot of success as a buyer and seller in Moda as well. A lot of our friends have done that. It's not risk-free, but it's well policed and well maintained and well controlled. And I think pretty competitive pricing from both a buyer and a seller standpoint.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll move into the social media in a second. Joey, I think the issue with me with the taxation, it's not just I'm gonna get taxed because most watches that I sell, I take a little bit of a loss on anyway. It's just like the rigmarole of doing the paperwork, right? And then
Absolutely.
getting that in
Absolutely.
there, and I think for me, that is the big detraction. You in the same boat with me? You follow me with that one?
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that, and as I said, this is something that we're going to see more in the future, especially with eBay.
Hmm.
And I think, you sold some things on eBay last year. I sold some things on eBay last year. And, me and you were having an interesting conversation the other day because I said, I never got 1099 from
Mm,
eBay. And this was the year that they're supposed to do it. And you said, well, I did get 1099.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
did some research. Now, apparently the federal limits won't be going into effect until 2023 now.
Hmm.
Um, but if you have state limits that are below the federal limit, then eBay is required to provide you a 1099.
Right,
So,
Yep.
and technically, you're supposed to be reporting all of your sales to the federal government, anyways, right? Like
right,
we
right.
always do. Um, but that said, I mean, it eliminates so much paperwork.
Yeah.
Not having to do it, and just I was having some anxiety about how I was gonna because I hadn't seen any of the tax forms yet. I wasn't
Mm,
sure exactly how to lay it all out or what I needed to show, what I needed to prove, whatever.
mm,
But so I kind of lucked out in that regard. But it's definitely something that we have to worry about in
mm.
2023 and going forward.
And like
Yeah.
you said, in this environment, I mean, you might have a few pieces where you've got a gain, but you're just as likely to have a few pieces where you've taken a loss.
Yep.
So hopefully, shouldn't be
Yeah.
too big
Yeah,
of a consequence.
it wasn't any kind of effect on my overall taxes this year. It's just again just doing the paperwork,
The
and
paperwork.
and
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just a bummer. Um, Now going into and this I think is a good segue into the social media aspect, and you started touching on it, Rick. My preference for sale, and it's because of the certain pieces that I have, has been places like Watch You Seek, right? I've done some eBay sales in the past, and I realized that I'm probably not going to go that route. I usually just go eBay when I have a hard time selling a piece, right? Because you cast a wider net with eBay, right? There's people all over the world who are on eBay. I will start off though first going to places like Watch You Seek, even to some of the Discord communities that I am a member of. I'll put it out there first if I think I want to just a quick sale with not a much hassle. It's great to be part of some of these watch groups because with experienced collectors and watch buyers, because I find a little less hassle, right? I mean, we all know the gig. We all know that the watches, watches are watches, and there's certain expectations that we have. We do our best to describe what we're selling, but a novice might be more critical of a sale and not understand how things go. So like these watch groups are really just an easy way to do it. And then you could do Zelle, you could do
Yep.
PayPal and stuff like that, and kind of try to avoid that tax implication. But then like I'll go through like the Watch You Seeks, and that gets apps like Watch Patrol and Watch Recon. They do a crawl, and they do all those other platforms. They basically like they grab Reddit and stuff like that, and Watch You Seek, and present it to you in a nice little app. So if you don't have Watch Patrol, Watch Recon, there's like good apps for finding watches. Reddit is another option. Joey, any social media stuff that you use to sell your watches?
I do. I've Reddit can be a little bit confusing. We've talked
Mhm.
about that in
Oh
the
yeah,
past, where
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
like getting your post approved, and
yeah.
forgetting the timestamp or forgetting the
Mm,
whatever
mhm,
can be a little bit aggravating, and it's just it's like walking into a flea market
mm,
as far as the way that it's organized. You have no idea where to look or whatever. You just kind of have to just scroll through and hope something catches your eye. Um, you know, I often will take the offers that I get from the online retailers. The whether it's Crown and Caliber or European Watch or um, whoever else I might be looking at. And the nice thing about Crown and Caliber, they'll give you an offer sometimes within seconds.
Right.
So it's good information to have right off the bat. And if you're kind of happy with the offer that they provide you, you can always just let that sit for a little bit. Go on a Facebook group, or on Moda, or go on Reddit, or go on Watch You Seek, and throw a flyer out there. Try and get an extra $500 to $1,000 for that piece, and give it 24 hours. You might get lucky. I know I broke some hearts in the chat with my Pam sale last week, but I sold that one. I'm in a bunch of the different Facebook watch, buy, sell, trade groups, whatever, Moda, all that stuff. And every once in a while they'll say, like, post your Pams under $5,000, so it was, that was just an opportunity for me to be like, all right, well, you know what? I'm toying with this. Let me throw this in there. And that post actually got me 2 people giving me offers on it. And I ended up selling it through that post. I'm one of those guys where, like, once I decide I've moved on, I want to get rid of it as fast as possible. While still, without having to take a bath on it, I'd rather keep a watch than take a really bad bath on it. Which is why, cheaper stuff I do eBay and I do auction, because I figure I'm going to get whatever the best price in the market is for that piece. My worst case scenario is I'll get the worst price in the market for that piece on that given day. And then I'll lose some on fees. Because of the tax stuff, that's not so much of an option anymore. But yeah, I mean, I think that you can use a lot of these different platforms against each other, or they kind of complement each other in many ways, and you can often, come out a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
Joey, I've used eBay a few times, and I've had nothing but success and good dealings. But I read an awful lot about nightmares from sellers where there's the buyer makes some erroneous claim, and eBay or PayPal always siding with the buyer, and there's chargebacks, and they don't get the watch back, and they got to refund money, and that type of stuff just scares me. I think maybe at the price point. At a certain price point, it's a risk you take, but it's something to be aware of.
Yeah. I mean, I find more value these days as a buyer on eBay for some of the things you mentioned, Rick, but also with their authentication system now. It's encouraging. Before I wouldn't even touch eBay watches on eBay. Would never. I only started. This has only been like a year since I've been doing that, buying stuff on and selling stuff on eBay. Before that, I wouldn't even go near eBay when it came to that kind of stuff. Jim T says, as a CPA, I believe in not reporting anything to the feds unless I receive a 1099. This is not meant to be tax advice for anyone reading this. Bruno saying 43 minutes, now 48 minutes in, and I haven't heard the name Grand Seiko.
There it is.
Reddit is easy. I'm a boomer, Deb.
I don't even know what Reddit is.
Yeah. All right. Chaz is saying, my wife retired from the IRS, and I have the same belief, Jim T. James Duffy, I have not sold anything in 2 years. Too lazy for WatchRecon. Need to join Random Rob's Flippers Paradise. Yeah, I mean, that, in the beginning of my collecting, Random Rob, who has a channel on YouTube, as you guys know, he would do a Sunday Funday sale. And actually, even before, like, I was any kind of, like, or knew him, like, I would send watches to him, and he would sell them for me on his Sunday sale, and great success doing that, and I appreciated that. I ended up selling, and this was before I knew like any of the platforms, or actually there was a lot of fear, right? There was a lot of fear. I just didn't want to deal with that. I'd rather have somebody deal with selling it for me, and he did a great job. And in his Discord, he has a section for that. You have to join his Discord, but you get the ability to buy watches. And selling, you can get rid of a lot of the pieces there, but you're probably going to take a big haircut. But it is what it is. I mean, everybody knows what the deal is in there for sure. Joey B's rubbing salt in the wounds about the Pam 111.
Uh,
Uh, what? The Pam sold? Oh, Caliber. Hearing the news for the first time. Um, Jim saying yes. Plus, they are backlogged in everything tax related for at least 10 years, for the last 10 years, especially from all the paper flyers. Um, Caliber saying he's been burned buying fake watches from eBay. That's the scary part, right? I think I feel a little bit better though about the authentication process, though, and hopefully that mitigates, all the fakes. I'm sure some will slip by, but um, Bruno says I only sell inexpensive watches on eBay, and I think that's a good strategy, right? Like you don't want to put up, like your Rolex Submariner on eBay. Although you can buy some on eBay, but I wouldn't, right? I wouldn't sell it on eBay for sure. Plus, I mean, I think like if you sell anything over $1,000, they take like 15%. Under $1,000, I think it's like closer to 7 or 8, maybe more. But I think anything above like $1,000 and above, it's like 50%. So it really can eat away at profits. And you get 1099. You know, um, Caliber saying I've heard the same thing that eBay favors the buyer and buyers will scam people taking advantage of that. Didn't receive my watch, the box was empty, and eBay will sign with them. Um, Jim saying, great topic tonight. Appreciate it, Jim. I just sold 5 watches on eBay and paid 2K, approximately 2K in fees. I got to find
that's
a
the
new
problem. That's
platform.
the problem with all of these platforms. I mean, whether it's
Yeah.
Chrono24 or eBay or auctions or consignment. Consignment, we didn't talk about the fees, but I think
Mhm.
typically looking at between 10 and 20 of the net sale proceeds on
Mhm.
consignment. And on an expensive piece, you can negotiate that lower. So if it's a pricey watch, you can typically consignment fee.
Yeah.
It's there's no free lunch.
No.
It's not. We all love buying. I think we all hate selling, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's why, for me, at a certain level, the social media stuff is a little bit more appealing, although equally as risky, right? I mean, like you can run into a bad seller and so I would recommend in most cases, getting a wire, right? If you're a seller, right?
Yeah.
What are those like preferred methods? Like something like that, like Zelle, cash, right? Cash. You want
I think
cash?
Zelle on small balance
Yeah.
transactions, Zelle is pretty safe. There's really no
Hmm.
chargeback on Zelle. But wire, I insist on wire on just about anything that I'm selling.
Yeah, the painful thing with Zelle is that sometimes you're selling over the limit for that particular buyer for that day, so they might it might delay your sale by a day, and then you have to worry that they might step away from it at that
Mm-hmm.
point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Zelle is probably the safest for lower amounts and
Yeah.
and quickest and everything. Sometimes it depends too. I mean, if you're working with somebody, they're a real person.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen they've done transactions in the past. You can look up their LinkedIn. Get a some people you're going to be a lot more comfortable with than others. And maybe PayPal, friends and family,
Yeah.
whatever. It is more feasible in those
And I,
circumstances.
and I would just say, if you're using a social media platform, just be careful, protect yourself, do your due
Mm.
diligence, search, ask for a copy of their driver's license, do a live stream chat to make sure that
Mm.
everything matches
Good point.
perfect.
Yeah.
You know, just be real careful. There's a lot of scammers out there,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
sometimes maximizing price, comes with a degree of risk involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bruno, thanks for clearing it up. You're right. I had it the other way around. It's 15%, up to $750, and then the price drops after that. Thank you. And postal money order is your friend. Well, gentlemen, great discussion this evening. I can't let you guys go without asking, is there anything on your radar? Joey B, I know you got the Aquaterra, but hey, it's never too soon.
I
It's
know
never too soon, right?
there's certain things that I'm always kind of looking for.
Yeah.
Like I have a, I, I have this I can't quit you feeling with the Explorer 2 all the time, and I'm
Yeah.
always thinking about picking one back up. It would be third time's the charm. Um, it's just Rolex. I should probably just stay away from Rolex entirely, but
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I get that itch and I buy it, and then I get the itch to sell it too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, that's probably first and foremost. I'm kind of, I've picked up a few pieces recently. I've let go of a few pieces recently. I'm kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern now.
Mm.
I've been wanting to get one of these for several
Yeah.
weeks now, and I'm glad that I was able to pick it up. Apologies for my hiccup earlier. I'm flying solo tonight. I've got
Yeah.
two kids that are being a
Don't
little
worry.
antsy in the
We've all,
background.
Yeah. Yeah.
we've all been
Texting
there.
I heard the knocking. I was like,
Family first.
yeah.
Yep.
Rick, what about you, Rick? Anything?
Well, I'm absolutely concentrated on being a net seller. So
Okay.
I've to this point I've sold more watches than I've bought this year, but I've bought a few things. And
Okay.
the one thing that has sort of caught my eye over the last week that I just can't seem to get out of my mind is an Armand Strom Residence Manufacturer's Edition. They just came out with this watch,
Yes.
slimmed down
Awesome.
slimmed down the thickness of the case, the size of the case, very attractive blue dial on the watch, limited edition of 50 pieces. You guys know that I've got some personal hang-ups on some of the design aesthetics with Armand Strom, but this watch doesn't have those. And resonance, as far as I know, I think it's only been done by Vianney Halter, Francois Paul Jorn, and Armand Strom. And I'm just fascinated by that. I don't know whether I'll act on any of this, but it's something I continue to read and research and can't get out of my mind.
Yeah, I hope he's back on at Watch Time this year. It was great seeing those watches in person. I got to
Yeah,
tell
I'd
you,
love to see one of those.
oh man, just beautiful. Like I've heard of them. I've heard of Armstrong. Didn't really let it occupy any kind of space in my mind until I saw it in person, and I'm like, whoa, man, this is amazing. Grail type stuff for me. So probably will never happen, but just amazing, just amazing experience going there. As you know, Rick, you were there last year too. So just and meeting these watchmakers in person. You know, RGM and Boom Linen and a bunch of other people there. It was just great. Anyway, guys, thank you so much, Joey and Rick, for taking time out of your day and going through how you sell your watches. I think this is a valuable resource. And now this video will live on in perpetuity for anybody who wants to come back and take a look at it and see, how experienced watch dealers, sellers, how they do it, and hopefully, there's a lot of good information, and hopefully that'll help somebody make a decision in the future. Chat, great job with the chat this evening. Really, really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys on Friday night. Take care. Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.